Well, to discuss the growing divide between London and some cities in the north, I'm joined by Pier Barrett from the London Chamber of Commerce, the Blackpool-raised pop singer Little Boots, and from Newcastle by Lewis Johnson, who began his own event planning business last year. Lewis, can I begin with you? This report makes pretty depressing reading. Do you ever feel you're in the wrong place?
I don't feel I'm in the wrong place. I just feel that investment isn't going the right way. There's a lot of focus and help with young people starting businesses up within London and the surrounding area, and that isn't that support within the North East.
I mean, that's true, isn't it, Pier, that for too long it's all gone London's way, hasn't it?
Oh, I disagree, actually. I think the mistake is to feel that growth is this massive cake, that if London has less of it, the other UK cities will have more.
That's certainly the experience of some cities.
Oh, no, not necessarily, actually, because if you take away growth from London or make decisions to constrain London's growth, then actually it isn't Birmingham and Bristol that benefit, it's Beijing and Berlin. When London grows, the rest of Britain benefits as well. That's clear from the amount of tax that London contributes over the amount that's spent publicly there, and the amount of London-based firms that are creating jobs in places like Newcastle and in places like York.
Little Boots, or Victoria as you're normally called. I mean, you've enjoyed real success. Could you honestly say that if you'd stayed at home back in Lancashire, you'd have had that success?
Probably not, if I'm being completely honest. You know, I guess when I was trying to get into the music industry, all the opportunities seemed to be in London, and now I actually run my own record label as well. And for that, seeing, you know, the network of people that we need to work with, they're all based down here, so it's just very challenging.
But in a way, you illustrate the problem. You come with your talent and you're successful. And so far, you're not looking at going home. You're not setting up a record business back at home.
It is difficult. I think it's important to, you know, remember where you came from. And I always try and do things back in the north or just more regionally and not just be so London-centric. I think a lot of creative friends that I know, it's just so London-centric and this kind of bit of a, it's still grim up north kind of attitude in London. I think that needs to change because the north's a very creative place. It's really exciting and it's different, and it's that difference that needs to be celebrated and invested in.
But the reality is you still wouldn't go home to set up business at the moment.
Not right now, but I do think in Manchester, especially since the BBC has been there, I can see a real change and it really feels exciting and that it's got its own thing going on. I think that's where the growth's going to come from. And if London's, you know, is doing well now, I think that's hopefully just going to spread.
Lewis, Little Boots is saying that, you know, the north can be incredibly creative. We know that. What is the difficulty, though? Because the report suggests that some cities are just not selling themselves properly.
I think Newcastle does sell itself as a city, and the North East in general does. I mean, we've got companies such as Nissan, who have a massive plant in Sunderland. And we have companies such as Sage, who have their world headquarters based just outside of Newcastle. The opportunities and land even for development is there. Just the funding isn't there in general to help those companies put their investment into the local area. Small businesses, 95% of businesses are recognised by small businesses. Now that is a massive percentage compared to the big businesses.
Pier, you want to come in on?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with any of that. I think he's broadly correct, but I think the answer isn't necessarily to take investment away from London. I think actually the answer is to empower those local cities to find what makes them unique, give their local government enough power, the power to retain its own finances, the power to make those investment decisions to benefit local people. At the moment, they don't have that. London benefits from having its own mayor, a long history of city government. If those great northern cities were given the same powers, then you'd also...
London has pretty catastrophic house prices.
No,
and labour is more expensive here than it might be elsewhere. I mean, is there a danger that London will end up pricing itself out of the market?
Well, that's the case why you still need investment in London. London still needs investment in houses and in transport if it's going to grow, and growth in London supports the rest of the country.
I just feel like maybe the rest of the country needs the investment more than London does. London's got this huge history of you know, it's been successful, and I think that, especially for things like arts funding, I think it affects being cut in other places more than it does in London, where there's already this scene.
I think if local government was as powerful as it is in London, or even more powerful, had even more money or even more powers to finance infrastructure investment and financing arts projects and having a greater cultural offer, actually you'd find that these new northern cities could break out of the tragedy that is the industrialisation, find a new unique selling point, and actually build the infrastructure that will create the jobs and create the business opportunities to come. That won't damage London, it will complement it.
But there's still a sort of almost a philosophical problem, isn't there? You heard the businessman in Siobhan Kennedy's report saying all the talents in London. I mean, that's quite offensive, actually, isn't it?
Well, no, I don't think it is offensive. I think let's be clear, the real tragedy is that so many young people are unemployed, that so many people leave school and go straight onto the dole. If those young people find jobs in London, that's something we shouldn't begrudge them for, nor should we begrudge the employers or the city they come from. The key to bringing those jobs back to the north, or creating similar jobs to the north, is giving those local authorities powers. So do you think Lewis and his city need to work a bit harder? No, I think Whitehall needs to give them the powers to work harder. Lewis, what would you like to see to make things better for where you are?
Well, I would like to see, maybe not take the funding away from London, but make more funding available in Newcastle. I know in London there are several grants available to start businesses, and up in Newcastle there's virtually only the Startup Loans Company, which is taking a loan on.
Just very briefly, sorry Lewis, just very briefly, are you ever tempted to come to London?
No, I believe I'm from Newcastle, that's where I was born, and I think if everyone starts moving away to London, Newcastle and other cities are never going to get any better. It takes people like myself and my business partner to create these businesses, to try and create more jobs in the local area.
Yeah, Little Boots, I mean, Manchester had a fantastic and has a fantastic music scene. I mean, are there things, do you think, that could be done to, you know, encourage growth in other cities?
Definitely. I mean, I think things like transport links are a huge deal, because if you can get to London in 2 hours, which you now can from Preston, you definitely couldn't a few years ago, that's made a huge difference. And so you could feasibly, you know, go in and out and move around the country. I think, you know, the internet's made a massive difference in that things can be a lot more regionalised. You don't need to be right next door to somebody. And yeah, this huge history of music in places like Manchester and Liverpool, and things like the Manchester International Music Festival, things that, you know, are unique events that make them destination cities, make creatives want to go to those places out of choice. I think that's what's going to make the change.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you to all three of you. Thank you, Lewis and Newcastle.